The answer is no. There we go, problem solved. It's just that easy. Okay, I actually did think about this question for a little while, and I decided that there is technically a way to make an addictive gacha system without trying to bankrupt people. If you're unaware, gacha games are basically just any game with a slot machine built into it, usually to unlock playable characters, sometimes weapons, sometimes other stuff. It really depends. You can spend real money on some fake in-game currency that you can then spend on rolling the dice and maybe getting what you want. It's just gambling, but for gamers. It works insanely well, and the issue is that major developers are never going to stop doing something that makes tons of money so long as it continues to work. Even if the people working on the games would prefer to do things differently, the company as a whole would never be able to allow it. That's just how it is. So before I throw random ideas out, I really want to pick apart gacha games and why they work at all. Gacha games, as they exist right now, rely very heavily on pressure to keep people engaged. They're like bear traps. The moment you set foot into a gacha game, they snap shut on you and try to sink their rusty little teeth in your ankle. They exert tons of psychological pressure on you to keep you invested for a variety of reasons. I'm just going to use Genshin Impact as an example because I actually played that one. Everything about Genshin, from the main story to the stupid little visual novel side quests, is there to create emotional investment in the characters. Every event, every section of the story, every part of this game is focused on showing you characters in the hopes that you will be hooked by one of them. It presents them having problems, needing help, being vulnerable, and growing closer to the character, the main character. Because the whole point is to sell them. The characters are the product in this case. It's basically always about the characters when it comes to gacha games because people form emotional attachments to them, which can be leveraged for profit. Also, nobody can convince me that the story in Genshin is for any other purpose other than selling the characters. Genshin's story is bloated and dumb. It hooks you in the beginning with mystery and gets worse the more you learn. Any good ideas in it are ruined by manipulative execution. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Genshin mainly relies on emotional pressure, which I would argue is the most effective way to hook people long term. They introduce the characters to you and make them as likable as possible, and they make tons of different characters so they can hook as many different types of people as possible. Now, if that were it, this would just be good character writing and design. The problem is that this is combined with other forms of psychological pressure and then wrapped up neatly with a price tag. The characters are made rare artificially by limiting how and when you can obtain these characters. This is the second form of pressure at work. It creates a type of scarcity that mimics real-world economic scarcity. Because it's rarer and harder to obtain, we feel that it is more valuable, even when it doesn't serve any real-world purpose. I'm not trying to be edgy or devalue creativity and entertainment, but these are in-game characters. They're tied to a digital account on some server we have no access to, and the characters will disappear when the game shuts down. We don't own those characters, we've just rented their use in the game. That's all we get for it. Then they attach time limitations to their best or most interesting characters, and usually make them better to also hook competitive people. The best characters in Genshin are rotated in at random, and players have no idea when a character will ever be available again. So there is a ton of pressure to unlock them before they disappear. This is how they leverage the emotional attachment that players form through just playing the game. The uncertainty of it is brutal, and it nails a real vulnerability that all of us face at some point. We don't like missing out on things we care about, because regret is a heavy emotion. Even if the character turns out to be bad, We would prefer to have them and know they're bad than watch them vanish and not know. Here's the worst part. All of this manipulation, because let's be honest and call it what it is, all of this psychological manipulation has been engineered on purpose. These are deliberate design choices made by teams of people who are paid to leverage money out of players. These characters don't need to be rare, they don't need to be tied to real money, and they don't need to be withheld from people for random amounts of time. It's like if you took gambling addiction and then added emotional attachment with loss aversion to make this unholy soup of a genre. They make players care about a character, and put it behind a wall and tell them to gamble for access to the character. It's actually kind of upsetting to think about because it just gets worse the more I think about it. Since gacha games are basically just gambling, let's briefly compare them to a casino. If you walk into a casino, you can waste money in the hopes of getting more money, or at least some of it back so it's not a complete waste. If you win at a casino, you get money that you can take back out of the casino and do other things with. However, if you win in a gacha game, you get something that will always stay in the game. You can't cash out of a gacha game, so any money you spend is 100% gone forever, and you don't even get anything real out of it. When the game shuts down, that's it. The characters you want are gone. I said it before, but we really are just renting the characters. So, to come back to my original question, can this kind of predatory game design be somehow made ethical, or at least more ethical? I think that it actually can be, and not even in an unrealistic way. I think a game company could make a profit on a gacha game and still make it ethical, or a lot better than it is right now. It will always carry the foundation of gambling addiction, because that's just how it works. But there is a way to make it not destructive, at least. I'm going to take a company's point of view because it's really important to be realistic about what is and isn't doable. I'm not devising a utopian perfect system that solves every problem. I'm simply offering a better alternative model. The developers need to be paid for their work, and they need to be paid to keep any servers online. That is the bare minimum. That's the given. Since the characters are the focus, why not dedicate some more resources to create different outfits or special versions of those characters to sell as the exclusive product? You got the default version of the character, which is at least nice enough to initially hook players. Then you have like 3 or 4 different models for them that can be outlandish or extravagant. Slap a $20 price tag on each one and call it a day. Maybe make some of them limited time events for all I care. If you divert focus to these optional outfits instead of the actual character, you're no longer leveraging emotional attachment, which is arguably the most unethical part of any gacha game. But then you wonder, how can you make people want the characters and feel really good when they get them if there's no price? This is where you keep the artificial scarcity element. If you want characters to feel valuable in a video game, you have to make them rare. That's just how it goes. Keep the characters on a rotating roster, but plan out the releases in advance so people can see when a character may come back or not. This removes the anxiety factor that burns people out, because then they can look ahead and plan out their strategy for getting the characters they want. By setting it up this way, you're actually encouraging long-term investment in the game itself, because now the player can formulate long-term goals and strategies within the game. This is even more important when you take away the ability to pay for characters themselves, because then players have to manage whatever currency they need to be able to get the characters they want. I suppose it's one way to teach people to save money as well if you want to go that route. You can even keep the slot machine format and make it a gamble on whether you get the character you want or not. I actually don't have any problem with that if it's completely separated from real-world money. I won't even lie, it's fun to earn currency playing the game and then gamble it on cool-looking characters. That loop is undoubtedly part of the appeal, so keep it. If you keep it fair, so people eventually do get what they want, if they have terrible luck, and if you remove the ability to spend real money on it, then you have a slot machine system that basically has no significant downsides. People don't feel bad for investing time into it because it's fair enough to not cheat them, and it circumvents a lot of gambling regulations and laws that do affect gacha games now and could affect them more in the future. The point here is to maintain the excitement of gambling without making players feel bad about it later, which encourages more long-term engagement. To lay it all out cleanly, make the characters the focus still. This is what actually makes a lot of people want to play. Keep the limited availability, but add a schedule or make them rotate once every few days so players can plan out their playtime. This creates more investment in the game long term without pressuring them with anxiety and loss aversion. Keep the slot machine mechanic, but make it only usable with currency you get by playing the game. This removes ethical concerns and is generally a lot easier to navigate in terms of laws and regulations. Include unique and special outfits to provide real profit for the company. These unique looks can be themed for holidays, limited time things, seasonal, doesn't really matter. There are a lot of ways to hook people with optional cosmetics, especially if you dedicate talented artists to design them. You can even give them special effects that change the character's animations, which would create an even bigger draw to obtain them. Keep these outfits at a flat rate, even if that rate is absurd, because people will buy them if they love the character. And keeping the flat rate avoids interference by gambling regulations. That is my conceptual model for a more ethical gacha game, and I would actually encourage developers to adopt either this model or some other better one sooner rather than later, because eventually the current model for gacha games will become unsustainable. Some law will clamp down hard on them, or people will get sick of being manipulated, or something will happen that will make it less effective for profit. A system that works by pressuring people with anxiety and loss aversion cannot last forever. This is why these games end up having lifespans of like less than 10 years, because they burn their own players and basically erode the player base themselves. If you account for this and use my model instead, for example, you could potentially create a much longer lasting game that people won't regret spending money on. It's the same thing, a gacha game, but without the parts that grind the players down over time. You're probably not going to rake in hundreds of millions of dollars, but I already know that this alternative model can make a profit, especially if you make special animations and highly interesting outfits. I used my autistic third eye to discover this. In all seriousness, proper budgeting, careful spending, and some good artistic talent could easily make it work. And if nobody bothers to listen to me, then I will do what I have done my entire life. I will one day do it myself.